Okay, this is going to be more of a raw video, but my name is Jay. I built a solo, profitable personal brand that's generated well over 6 figures through the businesses and the partnerships that I run under it, that have all come inbound over the past 2 years of sharing my work online. For a bit more context, I build out the content strategies of creative founders. I study content, I live and breathe content, and coming from a math and statistics background, I obsess over the data and analysis behind what makes videos perform and hacking the psychology of attention. And I'm going to candidly teach you how to build a personal brand today. Just a warning, this is not for people who want an easy way to get rich quick. This is not for people who want an easy way out and can't do introspective work. And this is definitely not for people who can't sit down and listen to what I have to say for the next 20 minutes. Because I know you've already heard all the recycled advice, tips and tricks that other content strategists will tell you. But trust me, I've walked the path. I manage content creators for a living. And since I was 18, I worked as a creative director for 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. There will be things you can't find anywhere unless it's behind a 5-figure paywall. But there's also going to be some things that you might recognize. But it's been curated into what's actually necessary for you to build a profitable premium personal brand. So let's jump straight into it. The first thing I need you to understand is the frame here. This is my entire philosophy, and it's that likability and credibility are two separate things, but are just as important in the buyer's journey. See, the market, especially when it comes to organic content, is entirely fatigued with everybody sharing the same recycled information, the same recycled expertise. So remember the two things I mentioned, likability and credibility. Credibility is something that every expert knows and wants to tap into, so much so that they actually neglect the other side of the journey, which is likability. And see, the way you make yourself stand out with your personal brand is actually becoming likable, reverse engineering what makes you likable. You can think about components like your story. What are components of your background that make you magnetic? Think about your life experiences, some of the values and beliefs that you share, and even things like your visual identity, the spaces in which you spend your time around. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gives a fuck about a design studio. But they do care about a design studio that was co-founded by 2 Gen Z Harvard dropouts that are on a mission to bring $15 million in ARR to their clients. That is the difference between not just becoming credible in what you do, that is also bringing in the mission and things that make you unique and likable. And both of those paths actually lead you to a stronger buyer's journey. If you were to ask your customers today what made them pick you over all your other competitors, I'm sure it's nothing to do with just your expertise. It's your person, your character, the associations that they bring towards you. And that's really the fundamental breakdown of what makes a profitable personal brand. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the 4 phases of personal branding. Okay, so the first stage is finding your unfair advantages. It is extremely easy for you to pick a niche and just stick with it. Or some people might even say pick a few pillars and then stick with those. Some might even say you are the niche and you shouldn't cap yourself out. But honestly, that's the wrong angle to think about this. So I want you to imagine this. You need to be known for a domain of things, but then there is one focus that takes up most of the mind share that somebody has when they watch your content. And that's going to be your unfair advantage. So I'd ask yourself these few questions. What am I the best in the world at? Who do I serve? And what do I find effortless that others find excruciatingly difficult? Once you can find those tailwinds for yourself, that can be your unfair advantage and you can lean into that in your content. And now, once you've found that, there are 2 ways that you can tap into it. Number 1, you create a domain that you're known for around it. So for example, my unfair advantage is content systems and taste. And there are so many other points of interest of me that I share online, but the main thing that I'm known for are those 2 things. And I can lean into that into my content. And then the second is going to be the more multifaceted one, but also using it as a vehicle for your workflow and funnel. So an example of this is I thrive on an empty calendar, and I cannot for the life of me time block time to create content. So what I do is I end up just going into spaces like these, going to my favorite cafes, just living my normal life, and I'm able to document when I'm feeling in the moment. I built my personal brand and my sales funnel around the fact that I can't have anything calendared in. And that's what I mean by actually tapping into your unfair advantage, not just in the content of your personal brand, but the way that you structure it. The second stage is sort of a contrarian take, but that's avoid chasing virality at all costs. Like, we're founders trying to build our personal brand. We're not trying to become the next big creator or celebrity. So unfortunately, in this case, views are just an ego metric, especially when we're in the context of actually running a business and funneling into that. And this is important to understand because not all audiences are quality audiences. Like with my time in content, I know content creators with 500k followers who can't sell a $90 offer, while I also know founders with less than 2,000 followers who are hitting upwards of 6-figure months. See, your personal brand has almost nothing to do with follower count and everything to do with your reputation. A personal brand is basically just a reskinned organic social media version of your reputation. So instead of chasing virality, chase truth, chase authenticity, and play the long game with your reputation. The whole goal of this is for you to create a quality stage of attention. And bluntly, this takes a long time. So if you can just create consistently over a long period of time on content, just create showing up as yourself with enough reps, you are going to have outlier pieces of content every now and again that drive traffic to the rest of your other pieces of content. So don't mind it too much if your content isn't performing, because that's kind of the point. You just need to keep creating for those outlier pieces. You're not always going to hit your PR every time you go to the gym. Okay, stage 3 is my bread and butter, and that's creating content around your workflow. See, the biggest reason why founders struggle to build their personal brand isn't because they don't have the information or the know-how to. It's because they're building their process on the schedule of somebody else who has made it before. And that sucks, because the biggest reason why they cop out and just choose to hire a content creator to be the face of the brand or the growth intern marketing for them, or just never build their brand in the first place, is because of this very reason. Now, why do I say this is my bread and butter? It's because I spend no longer than 8 hours a week on my content. And that actually comes from a byproduct of working my personal brand around the work that I do day to day. And here's a little sneak peek on how I do it. So what I do is I find the moments in my week where I'm in my flow state. Where am I speaking with the most conviction? For me, that's usually when I'm taking client calls, hanging out with content creators and consulting for them, or if I'm playing sports. Like anytime I'm doing work, that is when I'm in my flow state and I'm able to document off the rip. So what I do is I set up my week around those moments, picking a few locations where that criteria remains true. And from that point, I'm speaking on a flow state where I don't really need much scripting. I just need to have the general idea, and I can then speak my expertise, my stories, my personality, everything like that. And on top of that, being the big systems nerd I am to build repeatability, I set myself up to remove all the friction towards making those happen. So systems where I can capture ideas as they come and package the content production process around my workflow, so my content comes naturally while I'm working with clients and working with creators. This is important because if you remember from the previous stage, I mentioned that personal branding and building profitability around it is a long-term game, so you need to make it sustainable for yourself. And of course, you can't spend all your time working on the personal brand, you also need to work on the business. So there's that. We're not full-time content creators, so we can't operate like one. 4th stage, curation always eclipses creation. See, you have to be extremely selective with the work that you put out online. Now, what does that look like? I need you to be really intentional with what you share and where things are placed on your personal brand. Think about things like the characters you're portrayed as, the spaces that you find yourself in, and the associations you build with the people and the things you interact with. Because everything you do builds a sphere of influence around you. This doesn't mean you have to perfect every move that you make, but this does mean taking a step back and asking yourself why a few times. But just remember, the second intentionality ends up becoming a friction for you to create, you should tone it back a little bit. The only thing I need you to notice is the fact that when someone's in their buyer's journey, they're going to look at your personal brand with a microscope. So all I urge you to do for this stage is to spend some time reflecting on the deeper intentions behind your content before hitting post. Trust me, it'll be worth it. See, the people who post mindlessly to get a lot of quantity out are missing one thing. People need to have the confidence that every interaction they have with you leaves them inspired, curious, or educated. If there ever comes a moment where they're unsure about what they're going to get with you, then it means you haven't spent enough time curating your content and you've just been posting mindlessly way too much. Okay, stage 5. This is by far my favorite stage because I've run my entire business off of this stage. And you've probably rarely heard this before too. And it's that your middle of funnel is a two-way conversation with your buyer. I'm sure you've already heard the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. I'm not going to go through that because literally everybody can explain it. But what's more important to me is that you understand that your middle of funnel is actually a two-way conversation. Because on the founder end, and this is what actually makes a personal brand profitable, your business's buyer's journey is a gold mine for data. Every drop-off, every buyer objection, your top 20% of clients and why they chose you. It's important data that drives your future content. That is what creates this self-improving loop. So basically you take your biggest funnel drop-offs, your biggest objections that you get in your sales process, and then you're able to create content based on resolving that in the content upstream, so that future customers that go through that same buyer's journey no longer have to go through that bottleneck. It's the smarter self-improving loop. but the hard part is actually keeping track of these systems that come from different sources. So what I've done for clients is I've installed this AI agent called Outliers OS. It pretty much automatically pulls data from your funnel, EDM, sales objections, customer feedback forms, and gives you direct recommendations on what kind of content you need to make to patch the holes as part of your buyer's journey, so that your middle of funnel becomes one of the strongest nurture sequences in your industry. So it's out there. Those are the 5 stages that you actually need to build a profitable personal brand as a creative founder, or running a lean team at that too. Less than 8 hours a week on content. But as a final remark, this is a long-term game. The lackluster results you see today are ironically the exact reason why you're going to have an infinitely leverageable personal brand 2 years from now. See, my job isn't to give you the know-how, it is to give you the transformation from A to B, and also shape you into the type of person who's ready to sustain this personal brand for yourself. So if you want to work with me more closely to build your personal brand, like I said, I only work with a select few people, but you can get in touch with me through Outliers or any of the business partnerships that I have. I'll leave it down in the description. Creators, founders, you're all welcome. Stay safe out there and happy creating.